afternoon, everybody. My name is Ali Hirji. I am the lead of the AI Hub as well as the Center for Cybersecurity at Durham College, alongside some of my awesome colleagues, Vibha Tyagi, Chris Gillis, and our Dean, Debbie McKee-Demchik. I bring you greetings on behalf of our president, Don Lavisa, as well as our extended community at Durham College. Today, as the lead of the advisory committee as well for siberXchange, I've been tasked with a very important duty, and that is to moderate this session with our leaders from the region of Durham. We're joined today by Regional Chair John Henry. We're joined by Riaz Razvi, who manages and oversees the broadband development in our community. We're joined by the CIO of our region, Kalyan Chakravarthy, and we're joined by Sandra Austin, who leads a bunch of initiatives around economic development and planning, as well as where we're going as a community. We all know very well that we are in challenging times, but our regional government has been powering through and creating lots of opportunities for us. So let's begin by hearing from Regional Chair John Henry on the state of affairs as they sit today. Chair John Henry, over to you.
Well, good afternoon, and first of all, to the organizers, thank you. And I'm excited to be with you here this afternoon. As you know, Durham Region is the eastern anchor of the Greater Toronto Area. And at the region of Durham, we provide services across 8 municipalities. And to give you an idea how big that is half the size of Prince Edward Island, or the city of Toronto would fit in the municipality of Clarington alone. Our staff have been mobilized to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. And from those working in health departments to our paramedics, police, long-term care workers, and our other frontline services, to our economic development teams and staff across many departments at the region, we have been contributing and powering through the COVID response. Our primary focus of the region is keeping residents safe, and we are doing that in so many different ways. We're providing consistent, reliable information, from guidance for golf courses to reliable health data. We know we're now offering childcare to our frontline healthcare workers. We have developed a community assistance fund that is available as a one-time allocation for not-for-profit organizations in Durham Region that are providing urgent help to vulnerable residents, homelessness residents, and residents at risk. We have developed the Durham Economic Task Force combined of stakeholders from across the region focused on supporting our business community, and we continue to provide critical services to continue to meet the needs in our communities. We're now looking towards recovery. Our staff is developing a recovery framework. We're working with our provincial directives and public health guidance to focus on the community action and advocacy to build resilience and restore programs and services. Our recovery framework will be based on 4 key pillars: social, built environment, economic, and municipal. In Durham Region, businesses have a history of innovating to solve big problems. Businesses across Durham have committed to improving lives, not just for our residents, but also for around the world. We are now seeing how businesses in Durham Region have been pivoting to produce personal protective equipment or quickly moving their businesses to an online format. These are unprecedented times and we continue to navigate the pandemic, and will no doubt continue to challenge all of us. But as we look ahead, I am certain that we will continue to see the business community innovate and recover from this crisis. I look forward to participating in the conversation today and continuing the discussions about how we will continue to mobilize infrastructure and services as we move forward into the recovery. Thank you for the opportunity to bring opening remarks, and I look forward to participating.
Chair John Henry, thank you very much. Casey, we'll begin with you. You know, when we've taught together at Durham College, one of the things that you always mentioned was, in our vulnerabilities, we'll find our strength. Right now, the community is very vulnerable, especially our business community. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those vulnerabilities are?
I think I would rather look at it like it's not a vulnerability, but like it is a chance for us to really re-innovate ourselves. And when we look at it like it is, the digital is the new normal, where we need to, and I think I'll use the word, which is not a good word right now, but like that is embracing this change. Like we need to embrace this part of it and say that like how we really change our mindset, our attitude, and our behavior towards reaching out to our customers, whichever business. That can be a small, medium business, which can be a regional government or a provincial government or a big corporation as well. But like, how are we reaching out to the people and then making them comfortable to really look at it and say, how can we do business together? So that is what it is about. It is not about making your services digital, but we need to provide digital services. it is not a wordplay, but like there's a lot of things in making just the services digital. But like there is a different thought process and a different mindset that needs to bring into really making it providing the digital services. So that is where I think that like all the businesses they are the technology, the infrastructure, everything was available, but like now it is the openness to change and everybody's embracing the digital part of the things. So it is just changing the mindset and then looking at it in a different way. And I feel that like this is a great challenge and as well as a great opportunity.
Thank you, Casey. And you brought up two very important points. First is obviously the infrastructure through which you deliver digital. But then there's also something that you've touched on, which is the customer service piece and how we embrace this in terms of delivering our services. So Riaz, we'll come to you in about 2 or 3 minutes to talk a little bit about infrastructure. But Sandra and then Chair Henry, I want to turn this over to you. What has it been like now delivering services in this environment? I mean, typically, if I wanted something, I would email you, we would meet for a coffee, we would see how we can grow things together, so on and so forth. It's changed now. How is this impacting you and how is the region stepping up? Sandra?
Absolutely, Ali. Thanks for the question. So we are a large employer in Durham Region. We have close to 5,000 employees. And so to really take that workforce and turn them mobile almost overnight was quite an incredible feat. So yes, the technology is there. Our teleworking hadn't really been the norm up until that point. So I think what you're seeing is an incredible amount of innovation and resilience among our workforce to be able to make that shift immediately, and our strong IT staff who were able to support all of that. It raises a lot of questions about how we connect with one another and how we connect with the residents that we serve. So a lot of our counseling, our support services, to be able to move all of that to a virtual platform and in a virtual environment on such a short time frame with really no kind of runway to ramp up has been quite an opportunity, I would say, for us. Fully agree with Casey's assessment. In every challenge, what you have is that opportunity. We have a flexible workforce as well. So we were able to pivot to be able to redeploy staff where they were the most needed. So in my area, for instance, we do a lot of work around accessibility, community accessibility. Yep. And with switching to think about how we support our most vulnerable residents, those who are currently facing a lack of housing, who are unsheltered, we were moving those all to a new partnership at Camp Samak. So we were able to redeploy staff to go and provide that brand new service, which we had never done before. So really that ability to embrace change and really look at all of those challenges and say, okay, we're here, we have this role, we have this need, we're here to support our community. How can we do it? How can we do it quickly? And how can we do it effectively? So I think we've really been able to rise to that challenge.
Absolutely. Chair Henry, I want to give you a couple of seconds just to talk about as a leading figure in the community, you've been out there, and what's the feeling been like trying to now reach out to the community in different avenues? How has this changed your perception of the community, and what are you hearing from the community in general?
Well, first of all, Durham, I'm very proud of this community. The business community and residents have adapted really quickly to do this. And to give you an example, if you contact the region, it's really business as usual. The person that's answering the phone is not answering it from this building, they're answering it from home, but we're still able to deal literally with the hundreds of thousands of calls that come in every day that we've been able to take. And we've always talked about modernizing and changing the way we do business. And that was something that companies, and the region is no different, that would have looked at doing over a couple of years. But we were able to do this over a couple of days. And we were able to reposition literally almost 1,600 employees. We were able to move 500 employees outside of their normal working environment into other applications at the city and at the region. At the same time, we had to go out and hire people during this pandemic. So we actually had our staff out there recruiting and hiring over 230 people. So for us, it's been able to adapt, change, use the tools that have been available to us. And the biggest talent we have here at the region is the people that work here, and how they've come forward and done such an amazing job. I'm so incredibly proud of them. From the people that work in our emergency daycare, to our paramedics, to the staff here in the building, to police, the people who look after our water treatment plants, people that you don't see behind the scene. Yet this morning when you turned on the tap to brush your teeth, there is an entire team behind that water coming out of the pipe. And they've done an amazing job. I'm incredibly proud of them. But change is a good thing. And the region has changed very quickly. And I'm proud of the team.
Yeah, it's the only constant. So I think thank you for saying that, because now we have to sort of jump into, we've talked about the operational side. We've talked about embracing this environment right now and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. But in order to run digital services and to digitize our services, as Kalyan correctly sort of differentiated for us, you need infrastructure. And these are questions that are coming from the community. I'm seeing a couple of them coming in the chat as well, is that there are still community members who don't have access to the infrastructure that they need, whether it's the internet, whether it's the hardware, whether it's even the literacy with which to work in these environments. And I want to turn it over to Riaz, because Riaz, while we're seeing an opportunity right now and we're trying to grow, there are a lot of challenges and vulnerabilities. Riaz is the broadband project manager for the region. What are you seeing right now, and what steps are being taken to ensure that all of our community members can stay connected? Riaz?
Thanks, Ali. So yeah, that's a very valid concern. There are a lot of communities, some very close to home, that have inadequate access. So it's not just a matter of rural communities. Some are very close to our regional headquarters that don't have adequate connectivity. One thing to be clear though about infrastructure projects, especially broadband, wireline broadband projects, is that they're capital intensive. They take a lot of time to plan out, to go through the approval process, and to deliver. It's usually measured in terms of years, how long these projects can take to deliver. Wireline projects a little bit faster because you have less infrastructure under the ground and more on top of towers and poles. So we are working closely with regional ISPs that are making deployments happen. We have to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of these small ISPs are small businesses as well, so they have their own constraints, cash flow concerns. So they cannot go full out and make a lot of deployments. They have to be selective in what communities to deploy. But wherever possible, we're working closely with them and opening up our sites, opening up our towers to help expedite these deployments for them. We're fully aware that it takes time to do this, but if at all possible, we can expedite, we're willing to help there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, they say that you won't know how far you've gone until you can take the risk to go that far, right? And I know, having worked at Orion before, that broadband deployments are capital intensive, but also operationally, because they have to be maintained and everybody expects it to be on and lightning fast. A question that's come into me via Twitter is the focus of broadband now just for businesses, or are they things that we're doing to support broadband delivery to the home? That's number one. And number two is that are there any funds that businesses can apply into to upscale their current digital infrastructure? Riaz, I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll go to Sandra and Casey and back to the chair.
Sure. So to the first question, no, it's not restricted only to businesses. All communities that we have identified so far that are underserved, we would want projects to be deployed in these communities. And I'll speak to that a little bit more about the broadband survey that we're doing, because we need residents and businesses to help us identify those communities and tell us what broadband services look like, because the more information we have from these communities, the more ground level information we have, the more informed our decision making will be when we want to take actions in addressing these gaps. So I will provide a link as well where community members, businesses, residents can go to complete the survey, because that information will help for us to determine where services are needed. To the second point about funding, so there are funding pools available from the federal government to ISPs that want to make deployments in these underserved communities. And there are more funding announcements to be made later this year and next year. We are interested in getting those announcements made sooner rather than later, and we're working through channels to get the federal government and province to make those announcements within this year if possible. This is the time that we need money to make these public projects happen.
Thank you. Now we'll just, I just want to twist on that question just a little bit, and then we'll go to Sandra, and then I have something that's coming for Chair Henry. Casey, picking up on what Riaz had just said about delivering broadband infrastructure and gathering all of the needs, etc. Working with the telcos, the service providers, the internet service providers that run this is, they're taxed right now. They've got a lot on their plate. Is there anything that your team is doing, given the IT expertise, to support some of the engagement with our commercial telcos and internet service providers?
Absolutely, there are a lot of other things, and like I really wanted I wish that like you asked this question to Riaz, because like he has done a lot of work on this, so I really want to thank him on that. Is like there are a lot of small things that we are trying to do. Is like there are around 70 regional sites that are well connected across the region of Durham. So that is where the regional government has a presence on, and which has the connectivity to it, as well as the school boards have come onto the board, the DDSP, which
Yeah.
through Riaz, thank you. What we're trying to do is like where we can create these hubs where people can go, but like at this point of time, with the social distancing, with all the things in mind, like we cannot do that. But like once things are open, like where they can be acting as hubs, and we've increased our public Wi-Fi at our sites by at least by like 300%. There are 5 to 6 sites that like we have added where people can log in, people can come in and access the public Wi-Fi. So these are the kind of things that we are doing, because we feel that like more than anything now, there is one thing that is coming onto the forefront is the digital equality. That is like everybody has the right to have that part of the things to access to that digital infrastructure.
I agree. We have close to 100 people on right now, so I'm trying to do my best to toggle through all of the questions. Sandra, I want to go to you now, because one of the questions that's come in is from a policy perspective and from a strategic perspective. What are we thinking about, and how are we implementing our needs from a digital environment into our policy and into our strategy moving forward? It's easy to say we want to grow broadband, but the pace has now changed, the requirements have changed. What are we thinking of from there?
Absolutely. So we're at an opportune time in the sense that we've just recently approved the Council's 5-year strategic plan. So taking us from 2020 to 2024 and looking across the board at everything we want to do and accomplish as a regional government. So certainly the technology is a big enabler of where we want to go. We have an enormous focus on environmental sustainability. And to be able to do that effectively, we need data, we need information, we need intelligent approaches, we need solutions that speak to one another. So all of these really are integrated in how the region's able to provide some of these services. And another thing it all comes back to is in terms of our government relations strategy. So Riaz mentioned some of the senior level of governments, the provincial and the federal funding envelopes. We need to be in a position where we're really highlighting and showcasing all of the innovation and all of the things we are doing in Durham. And I always say that, in the government relations sphere, investment begets investment. So the more attention that we're drawing to ourselves and the more we're really demonstrating our modernization and our improvements across the board, the more receptive and the more anxious and excited other levels of government and other partners are to come and join the party. Really, that's what it comes down to. And so we need to, keep doing this amazing work, supporting our post-secondary institutions, really help one another, start that parade, beat that drum, draw up all that excitement. One of the very specific elements that we're focusing on in terms of formalizing our partnerships with the post-secondary institutions, and Ali, I know you're a key part of this, is really thinking about how we can leverage that student experience, that student expertise, and give them opportunities to work on real world municipal challenges. So I'm really excited about the City Studio platform that's launching very soon. And there's a lot of opportunities there for students and community members to come forward with those very specific policy and implementation challenges, to come forward with ideas, with advice, to be able to work with regional staff on developing some solutions. So we're very excited about that.
Thank you, Sandra. Chair Henry, I wanted to pick up from where Sandra left out about being inclusive and getting everybody into the mix and coming to the party and coming to the table. So Chair Henry, while I asked the question, you could unmute yourself so that you can respond. There are two questions. I'm going to weave it together. Number one is they're asking you is that in all of this development and the way we're moving right now towards hyper digitization, are you worried about people missing out, especially our senior communities? And what are we doing to ensure that they can also benefit from our increased digital service delivery that we're doing? But the second part to that question is, how are we also ensuring that that push about people in terms of everyone seeing the urban centers and not to sort of take a shot at any of our colleagues in different municipalities, but you think about Toronto and you think about other larger metropolis where most of the tech talent goes there. What are we doing to make sure that a lot of this talent still thinks that Durham is the place to be, and this is the place to work, and this is the place to come through this pandemic that we're in? Chair Henry?
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, what's happening in Durham is not very many people realize we have about 20,000 young people going to school at Durham College or Ontario Tech or Trent University, or working out at the Learn Center at the hospital at Lake Ridge Health. So we have this talent pool that's coming here to get the most amazing education, and we want to keep them here in the region. And the challenge that we just can't think about the lakeshore where our population is. We have to think about the population that's north of Highway 7. So one of our largest employers is agriculture. In order to attract young farmers into our communities or have them come back to the farm, they're running their entire farm off their iPhone. Having the ability to have broadband through our entire community allows those young people that are the change makers. They are recreating farms. We have farms in Durham Region where the kids that come home and run their entire grain drying operations are run off an iPhone. But we need to be able to get the technology to them so that they can do that. And as for our senior community, you're going to see a shift, and you're seeing it now, where young people are taking the opportunity to teach their grandparents and parents how to use an iPad so that they can connect each and every day. Before, they would just pick up the phone or drive and see them, but now they're using technology. And when we switch on all of those seniors on how to use that technology and where they can go, it is going to change the way they order groceries, how they do telemedicine. So it's a really exciting time. And here in Durham Region, we're very fortunate. We've got the employment lands along the 412, the 407, and the 418, and throughout all of our communities. So this is an amazing opportunity to take technology and drive what is an incredible community. And by the way, so incredible, we actually keep the lights on for 40% of the province of Ontario, because OPG is located two nuclear plants in our community. So it is an amazing time and exciting opportunities for everyone of all ages.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the approach that you're seeing from Durham Region is one, the inclusive approach really comes out when we've held this statement, which is something affects one person directly, it affects everybody indirectly. And we've always been thinking about what's happening within our communities at all times. Something that we do in Durham College as well. We partner with different municipal bodies, different institutions, basically to learn and share from each other. And you see that happening in the ethos currently being taken by our region at Durham in terms of addressing the current situation. There's a question that has come in, which I'm not entirely sure who to address this to, but because I know him also personally as well, I'll turn it to KC, because I think with your background in entrepreneurship as well, this one is a good one for you. And I think you have a lot of, more than my 2 rupees worth of advice, you have quite a lot to offer. So KC, the question is, right now you're seeing a lot of folks being laid off, technical professionals as well, who have now just gone into the world of independent consulting. And the word that has been used here by Amin Osmani is the freelance community. Is this the moment where we need to empower that freelance community and get everybody to realize what is their brand as an individual and get them to sell that in this new normal that we're in? Casey, we'll start with you, and then I want to get everybody's perspective on this. Great question. Casey?
I think it's an excellent question, and like there is a lot of buzz that is going around about that freelance consulting. And like to start with, like I think just to give a background, in 2008 when the whole economic downturn happened, that is when the companies like Uber have been formed. Like so whenever these kind of things go in, like that is where like you see the innovation happening and the new companies formed. And the second part of the things is like basically if you look at any of the big companies, they've made saying that like okay, this remote working is the way to go in. So what that means is like there is an office structure, anything that is being there is being dismantled. So what that means is, for the lack of better word, I can say a subcontracting or like anything will start happening. And even the best example I can see is like when you go to IKEA, like if anybody has logged in to ikea.ca, they have an option of, do you want to get it assembled by TaskRabbit? And the TaskRabbit
yes.
This would not have happened. Like if you look at it, like this would not have happened. Like TaskRabbit existed for like 8 to 9 years, but like if you look, partnerships are happening to really provide that service. So what that means is like there will be one centralized company where you'll get something from, but that company will offer the services around it. So what that means is like there are a lot of individual consultants, self-employed consultants, or whatever niche A core competency will be with some people say, I will be doing just this part of the things. Because TaskRabbit, if you look at it, they do give it to people like for a chairs, there are some that go in. So that is how I see it happening. IKEA is moving in, and I'm taking that as an example. Not that I'm a fan of IKEA, but like those are the kind of changes that will happen. And the an individual consultant or a core competency consultant will be the new way to go. And maybe in 2025, 2030, that's where we'll see people.
Absolutely. And Casey, it's quite ironic that the two of us taught the professional consulting and communications course last winter. And a lot of people kept asking us, well, why is this part of the AI program? Well, here's your answer right here in lived reality. So if there are a couple of students from Durham College on, again, Casey's messages to us and throughout his classes is now coming to life. Riaz, I have to bring this to you because another question has come saying, yes, great, freelancers and all of that, and let's bring broadband. But broadband alone is not just technical. You don't just say, here's some internet and here's lots of it, now make the world a better place. There's training and there's education and there's a lot of things Azhar Khan from Durham Catering is asking as well. What about how are we teaching people how to use the internet better and stay safe? What kind of programs do we have in place to ensure that this knowledge is handed over to the right people and that the right constructive powers can come out of it? Riaz?
Great. Before I get to that question, I just want to link to the previous question because the broadband survey that I was talking about, we had it running from January, so pre-COVID days, and we had to analyze the data pre-COVID, and we just analyzed it again post-COVID. The interesting fact to note is that pre-COVID, we had about 26% of the respondents saying that they were running a home-based business, which is pretty significant if you think about it. But from the March to May timeframe, that number increased by 5 percentage points. So a lot more people are using that opportunity for whatever the circumstances are. They are working more from home. And if you break that down, a good portion of that is the farming and agriculture community, as Chair Henry mentioned, but a good portion is ICT and professional services. These are workers that are working from home. So absolutely, I think the infrastructure needs to be in place to enable more and more people to be able to work from home. To the point about digital inclusion and digital literacy, I think that's a must. Just connecting to the internet is not sufficient by itself. How do you stay safe on the internet? Especially the more vulnerable people, the underage or the older population. There are a lot of scams out there. How do you protect yourself? How do you protect your home environment? Increasingly, a lot of devices at home are connected to the internet. Your Nest, your TV, thermostats. Yeah. How do you protect? How do you set up that environment to protect all of your home devices from being exposed to the internet? I think that's a very crucial question. There has to be programming available for that. I know some of the library systems in our area municipalities, they offer these kind of digital literacy programs. I definitely, I think there's to be an effort on having a more coordinated structure where these kind of programs can be made available to the community in a more structured manner. That's something that I can take away on, because I do think that that's an important piece of the puzzle. Just bringing broadband is not sufficient. The next step is how do you make the people feel comfortable online as well. So that's a takeaway for me.
Absolutely, and the narrative is following a very interesting kind of trajectory here. You pull at one thread and then you see so many others come out. But so far we're hearing about an inclusive community, making sure that we have more digital service, but we understand how to deliver digital service. And the key here has been that we're securing our communities by not just looking at enterprise, small to medium. We're looking at individual entrepreneurs as well. That's why we have Spark Center here. We have folks from, I see folks from other incubators as well, including Venture Lab. So that's amazing that we have that focus. But Sandra, people are stressed right now. People are tensed, and to secure their finances, to secure their business, they need a one-stop place where they can get resources. Can you tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, sitting at the regional level, what are the resources you're recommending to people? We've got BACD, we've got Chambers of Commerce. How do you recommend to people, and that's the question, how do you recommend to people to navigate these resources? Because there's going to come a point of time, and I read verbatim from my Twitter feed here, it's going to come a point of time where there'll be Zoom fatigue, and they won't want to be just hearing webinars. Sandra?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Well, and that was actually something that we recognized at the regional level very, very early on, is just that there is an onslaught of information.
Yep.
We have these daily briefings from the federal and provincial government, which are great, but it can be very difficult to stay on top of accuracy of information, what's available to whom, how do I apply, where do I go, how do I track down that information. All of our chambers, Canadian Chambers of Commerce, Ontario Chamber of Commerce, locals, how do we bring all of that information together and make it easy for people? So we did that at the regional level through economic development and tourism. They developed a one-stop portal for business where all of that information was compiled. And through our communications channels, we've really been highlighting for people where to go for accurate information. So follow your public health directives. Sometimes things that we see on social media platforms, they may be really interesting, they might not be completely accurate. So where do I go to find information? How do I get to the bottom of this? How do I find out what's right for me, what's right for my family? We also developed a common portal for community assistance. So if you have some time and you want to volunteer, you want to help out with some of these service providers, what sorts of opportunities are available? And maybe you do find yourself where you've been hit very hard with this, you're not an essential service, you have some time, but you want to keep your skills sharp and you want to develop those employable skills. Volunteering is a perfect opportunity to do that. So how can we match people? So a lot of those community resources are available on Durham.ca as well. So everything is there in one place, both for businesses, for residents, for social organizations that are looking for some funding. We work very closely with Feed the Need Durham to work on food security throughout the entire region as the portal for over 60 food providers. So really, we have seen a lot of our role in terms of being that one-stop shop for people. And just to the previous question, you noted about how we can work with individual entrepreneurs. And I think that's a really encouraging trend in government overall, is to open things up and talk about, how can we be having these hackathons? How can we generate those ideas to say we want to code for good, or we want to code green, or how can we focus on health outcomes? How can we focus on environmental sustainability? How can we really tap into the energy and enthusiasm that we have in our tech community? Maybe it's formal and structured, and maybe it's just somebody with an idea and some time. And by making our data open, they have those resources available to them to come up with some ideas that will work for us, they'll work for our community. So it's really encouraging that we're moving in this direction and taking the appropriate risk mitigation, of course, but how can we really make those connections so that we're providing the best benefit for our residents?
Thank you, Sandra. I'm getting questions from multiple areas, and I'm gathering that means the bots are working well. In case you'll be happy to hear that. So I got a question actually on WhatsApp, and Chair Henry, I think I've got a couple, but I'll take this one for you, where the individual has mentioned, look, Ali, great. We're identifying programs, we're identifying things we need to do, we're reaching out. We've got a great communication strategy via Invest Durham, where we're reaching out to people. But there's a point of time at which, because the revenue lines have dried up, not just for our businesses, but for our municipalities, it's going to come a point of time where our regions are going to say, hey, we can't do anything much more now. And we're hearing this kind of narrative from other municipalities. Are people right to be fearful that if this pandemic continues, we may not be able to support our community the way we currently are? Chair Henry, it's a difficult question, but I'll turn it to you, sir.
So it is an excellent question. So here at Durham Region, we are managing this challenge effectively and efficiently. We've been able to keep all of our services. We've had to change some of the timing around transit. We're still running our buses through the region, practicing social distancing, not collecting fares. Our revenue model has shifted, but part of it is also about containment and realizing that all of our services are essential. We have water treatment plants, paramedics, long-term care facilities, road, light. We have all these things that we still need to maintain. So it's very much a balance. We look at the numbers almost daily. Our staff is very in tune to this. And what I do want to say is that here in Durham, we have done a very excellent job, and I'm incredibly proud of that. The really only shift you've seen is in scheduling around transit. as for now. If this continues to go down the road, we will relook at this. But if you called the region for service today and you had a problem with a broken water pipe on your front lawn, you will have somebody there to address that very shortly. The challenge for us is instead of sending 4 people in one truck, we send 4 trucks with 1 person in each truck. So we're managing this, and I'm really proud, and we've done a really good job. We are not suffering through the challenges that other communities are having. And we've had really good fiscal practices in place for a very long time. So the team has done an excellent job. But I just want to come back to one question. We talk about broadband and we talk about the amazing and what it does, but we need to talk about not just the connection to the house, but the connection to the item. You know, years ago, if you had a problem in a building with a big refrigerator, there'd be a red light flashing on the outside of the building to identify to a police officer or a firefighter or a taxi driver who goes by. Nowadays, that equipment talks to the service companies. So at the end of the broadband line, at the end of that connection, we have all these talented people and all these job opportunities that are there. And that's what makes Durham College unique, because they teach all those trades. But we're very different today than we were two months ago, and light years ahead of where we were 2 years ago. So I just want to say that you got to think of broadband, but you got to think of what's at the end of it and all the jobs that come from that, especially in the service industries.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Chair Henry. And I know we've got about 5 to 6 minutes left, so I'll take one of the additional questions that I've received. And this is tying back into how do we continue to maintain the support fabric of our community? And by that, this question is sort of pointing towards how are we ensuring that our newcomers, you know, we've had a lot of people who immigrated into Canada and have made Durham Region their home. And within a week or so, we've been in this pandemic situation. What are we doing to ensure that our newcomers, that ensure the diversity of our communities, that bring new skills to our communities? Are we doing anything specific to support them? I'll open it up to anyone who would like to address that question, because I think it hits everybody here. Sandra, I see you nodding, so do you want to give it a shot?
I'll start, sure. Yeah, so certainly we do have a very well-developed program at the region, which is around labor market attachment for newcomers. And so our positioning has been that we've always seen diversity as a strength. And so how do we ensure that people who are new to the community are able to access those resources and really get that orientation, get that understanding about what's available around them? And so that continues, albeit now in a virtual environment. So again, comes back to people being able to be comfortable with technology and being able to do things virtually. So a lot of those connections have remained even through this course of the last 2.5 months or so that we've found ourselves in. But again, this is an area where we're relying heavily on data and on relationships to make sure that the programs that we're putting in place really are highlighting that strength that comes along with diversity and the inclusiveness. The other piece is the implementation of our age-friendly community strategy and action plan, which was approved a couple of years ago, but really takes on, again, a bit of a different flavor when you're talking about changing circumstances. So how do we make sure that those seniors populations remain engaged, that we're addressing some of the issues that come along with social isolation when people can't see one another? And talk about health impacts, it's not just the absence of disease, it's how well people are doing. What does that well-being look like? Do they feel attached to their community? Are they isolated? Are they involved? Is somebody available to check on them? If not a family member, a volunteer. So really about bringing all of that together and thinking about how we can make sure that in this strong, vibrant, diverse community that nobody gets left behind.
Thank you so much for that, Sandra. I'm just trying to navigate through a whole bunch of more questions, but we only have a couple of more minutes, actually 2 more minutes. So here's what I'm going to ask everyone. We have over 100 people here. There are hundreds of other people in different sessions. So here's my request, everyone. If you've got more questions, I'm seeing Sonia in the chat feature there talking to all of you. Reach out to Sonia, reach out on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever else, social media. Our folks at the region of Durham are very reachable. Reach out to them and they will certainly respond. But I do want to close without necessarily asking any questions about what are you doing for the community. I want to take at least 30 seconds with each of you to ask you a very important question, which I think few people are asking you, especially given the amount of responsibility you're bearing. So I'll ask it individually. Casey, you've told us everything that you're doing for us. You tell us, how are you doing and what can we as a community do to make your work as a CIO easier in these challenging times and more collaborative? Casey, 30 seconds.
I think this is about like learning, and I feel that like we need to learn as much as we can in these part of the stuff. And I'm looking at some of the challenges or the opportunities that are coming in, especially about the conversational news. The thing that you have raised the right topic about, there is a lot of information, but like people are getting a Zoom fatigue. So how can we develop something to have a conversational news? And this is not for a Durham, Casey as the CIO of a Durham, but like Casey as an entrepreneur and a technology enthusiast that like I'm working on. And like anybody from the college, like if they want to take and run with it, that would be a great thing, because like I think conversational news, conversational shopping, and a push like what it's going to be. So anybody on it, anybody wants to on it, I'm more than happy to review their business plans and provide my advice. That would be of great help for me.
Thank you so much, Casey. Riaz, question again for you. You're feeling the pressure. There's a lot of expectation on you. How are you feeling and what can we do in terms of helping you with propelling our broadband services in the community? 30 seconds.
I think this is a great opportunity for broadband. I think the last few months have really shown the light on the need for a good broadband connection everywhere. Even folks that thought that they had a decent connection, I think with the current situation, everyone is feeling the strain. Families are having to ration their internet use now because not everyone can be on the internet at the same time. So I'll just go back to the broadband survey. I really urge anyone that is listening that is a resident of Durham or has a business in Durham, please take some time out, visit the durham.ca/broadband page. There's a link to the broadband survey. The more you inform us about what broadband looks like in your communities, the more informed our decision making will be when we take actions on addressing that. So please take out some time.
Thank you. Sandra, you and our friends at Invest Durham, like Sonia, are hearing from the community from multiple standpoints. Again, want to ask you the same question. How are you keeping right now? And more importantly, what can we, especially us as not just citizens, but people who work here, live here, teach here, study here, what can we do to ensure that your work around from the policy perspective is getting the strength that it needs? Sandra?
Absolutely, thank you. And I would just highlight that the opportunity in sessions like this is to really shine a spotlight on what it is that regional government does. I think a lot of people tend not to understand, and it's difficult sometimes to have that even capacity to differentiate what are the federal government people around. We talk about economic development, attracting businesses to this region, environmental sustainability, strategic planning, all of it is done at the regional level. Yep. And so I think it's very helpful from our perspective that people be interested, that people care about the work that happens at the region and really want to be involved. And we're growing leaps and bounds in terms of how we engage with the community, how we bring people to the table, how we involve them in the decision-making process. And for me, I think that's really the biggest piece, that people care about the community that they live in, that they want to make a difference, and that they're engaged.
Thank you very much, Sandra. So with that, I'll give the closing words to Chair Henry by saying this. Chair Henry, people right now are fearful, but they have a wish as well. And a good friend of mine once said is that a dream is where a wish and a fear meet and come together. We've got a lot of fears and a lot of wishes. What's your closing comments for us to realize the dream of a stronger Durham and a connected Durham?
Well, Durham is just an amazing community, and we have been able to adapt to change for a very, very long period of time, and the change can be a good thing. During these difficult times, we've adapted to the point where people are now using FaceTime to have family chats, that you're able to use the technology that you have to interact with each other so you don't have to get in the car and drive across town. What I'm asking is that go to the Region's website. There's all kinds of information, but use the technology you have in hand so that when you go out, make your trips purposeful. Research what you're doing on your computers. The entire family doesn't have to go. One person can do grocery shopping. You know, practice social distancing and washing your hands and not touching your face and not gathering in large groups will go a long way to help us. And the way you do and solve some of that is do your research. Take the time to plan your trips, use your computers, know where you're going to go. Don't take the whole family for an event. And by staying at home, you will stay safe and you will help us make the curve on this COVID, and we will look down the tunnel where there is a light and an end to this. And Durham Region is going to be the place to do business, and we will lead the country when it comes back to when we open up for business again. And we can do that. We have all the people in our community. There's nothing we can't make, build, or deliver anywhere around the world. And we have a talented, very diverse workforce, and we can deliver that. So I'm proud of the work that you've done. And Ali, this has been a great event. Thank you for doing it. And to everyone that presented today and to all the questions, you have done an awesome job. Durham is the place to stay, to live, work, and play and learn. We are Durham Strong.
Thank you very much, John Henry. We'll put that on his shirt. For now, on my shirt, I have my Twitter handle. If you folks can see it, tweet your questions at me. But with that said, I will thank all of our panelists once more. A little bit of a teaser at 2:15 p.m. If you wanted to know how Durham's leading the way, I have a session with Minister Rod Phillips, but also with our very own Mayor Sean Collier from the town of Ajax. And we'll be talking about regional, provincial, and federal perspectives on where things are going and how we can secure the economy. We have other speakers from Durham Region as well, including our very own Ryan Smokin, who you wouldn't imagine would be in a cybersecurity conference, but I tell you what, when it comes to eating locally and getting people to buy food online, there is a cybersecurity component to that. So get ready to hear from the poutine man himself. Thank you very much, everybody. Stay smiling, stay strong, stay safe. And if there's anything my team can do, simply reach out to me. On behalf of the siberXchange Advisory, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and I'll see you soon in my next session. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.